The sun beat down mercilessly over the cracked earth of the Wyoming frontier. Wind lifted dust in swirling spirals along the narrow trail that led to the fading edges of Willow Creek, a hard little town scraping by on cattle, sweat, and grit. No one saw the girl at first. She was huddled beneath a gnarled mesquite tree, her face streaked with grime, her lips cracked from thirst. 11 years old, maybe 12, wearing a dress 2 sizes too small and boots filled with holes. Her copper hair was matted, and her eyes, green and stubborn, watched the road with a mixture of fear and hope. Beside her, wrapped in a moth-eaten quilt, lay a note pinned to her shirt. It read, in crude letters, "Her name is Clara. We can't feed her. Forgive us." Hours passed. Wagons rumbled by. No one stopped. Until he came. Chapter 2, The Poorest Rancher in Willow Creek. Jude Rawlins rode a swayback mare named Daisy. He was a man who didn't smile much and had more lines on his face than coins in his pocket. Folks in Willow Creek called him the poorest rancher for miles, though no one said it to his face. They said he lived off prayers and bad luck, that his cattle could die of shame, and that even the crows avoided his barn because there wasn't enough meat left to peck. He rode with his hat low, dust caked on his boots, and pain buried deep behind his pale blue eyes. Pain from the war. Pain from losing his wife to fever. Pain from burying his stillborn son 5 winters back. Jude wasn't looking for hope. But when he saw her, small, quiet, alone, his horse pulled up as if it had a mind of its own. She didn't speak when he dismounted, just stared at him like she expected to be passed over once again. "You lost?" he asked. She shook her head, then held out the note with shaking fingers. He read it, jaw tightening, looked at her, then up at the empty road. He could have walked away. Lord knew he had nothing to offer a child, no money, no mother, barely a home. But he didn't. Instead, he tipped his hat back and said, "Well, Clara, reckon I got an extra blanket and half a sack of beans. That makes us both rich by Willow Creek standards." Chapter 3, Hard Land, Soft Hearts. Clara moved into Jude's rundown cabin just as summer gave way to a blistering fall. The house had 2 rooms, a leaky roof, and a front porch that creaked like an old man's knees. At first, they barely spoke. Jude was a man of few words, and Clara had learned that silence was safer than questions. But slowly, something shifted. She fixed the broken fence without being asked. He carved her a new spoon when she burned the old one. She started calling the horse Daisy May. He started calling her Kid. One evening, Clara caught him staring at a dusty photograph on the mantel, Jude and a beautiful dark-haired woman, smiling beneath the cottonwoods. A baby carriage sat beside them. "Your wife?" Clara asked softly. He replied. Clara didn't push. But she sat next to him that night while the fire crackled low, and Jude felt something like warmth again. A heartbeat. A reason. Chapter 4, Danger on the Horizon. Willow Creek had its share of rough characters, but none meaner than Boone Keller. A former outlaw turned cattle baron, Boone owned half the valley and wanted the rest. He'd tried to buy Jude's land more than once, sneering at his pitiful herd and barren soil. "You'll be begging me to take it soon enough," Boone had growled. "One dry season, and you'll be choking on dust." Jude never begged, but the land was dying, and Boone knew it. One day, Clara came home shaking. "What happened?" Jude demanded. I was getting flour in town. Boone Keller said I looked like a stray pup Jude Rawlins picked up. Said you'd be better off without me." Jude's jaw clenched. That man's a coward who ain't never known love. "Are we gonna lose the ranch?" Clara asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jude looked her in the eyes. "Not while I'm breathin', Clara. And even if we do, what matters most is you ain't lost." Chapter 5, The Fire and the Flood. It came in the dead of night. A lantern tossed through the barn window. Flames spread fast. Jude woke to Clara's screams. Together, they ran barefoot through the smoke, untying horses, beating back fire with wet blankets. They saved what they could, but the barn was gone. The feed, the tools, everything. Sheriff Jenkins came the next morning. No proof it was Boone, he said, but folks saw his men riding nearby last night. Jude didn't reply, just stared at the smoldering ruins. Clara looked up at him. What now? Jude bent down, brushing ash from her cheek. Now we rebuild. Chapter 6. The Widow with the Orchard. Help came from an unexpected place. Miss Evelyn Hart, the widow who owned the apple orchard downriver, rode out with 2 hired hands, sacks of seed, and fresh blankets. Men like Boone don't win unless good folks roll over, she said firmly. You and that girl have heart. That counts. Clara helped plant a winter garden. Jude built a new chicken coop with salvage wood. Evelyn visited more often, bringing jam and laughter Jude hadn't heard in years. And in Clara's eyes, Jude noticed something new, light, stability, love. Chapter 7. The Gunfight. But Boone Keller wasn't done. One morning, Jude returned from town to find Clara gone. A note was pinned to the door. You want the girl? Sign over the land, or she dies. Rage flooded Jude's veins like wildfire. He saddled Daisy, strapped on the revolver he hadn't touched in years, and rode. Boone's men waited at Dead Man's Gulch. Clara was tied near the rocks, bruised but defiant. Boone swaggered out, sneering. Didn't take you for a man to fight over Charity. She's my daughter, Jude growled. You got 2 minutes to let her go. What are you gonna do? Old man, shoot me with that rusty tin gun. Jude didn't speak. He fired. Boone dropped to his knees, blood blooming across his shoulder. His men scattered. Clara ran into Jude's arms, sobbing. I knew you'd come. I'll always come, Clara. Chapter 8. Redemption and Rain. Boone survived but left town for good. His land was sold to pay off debts. Folks said he limped the rest of his life. The rains came 2 weeks later, gentle at first, then steady, soaking the field Jude had nearly given up on. Grass grew. Cattle fattened. Clara smiled again. One morning, Evelyn arrived with a basket of eggs. She paused at the door. Jude, Clara's got her school lessons. You got your cattle. But what about you? He looked at Clara, now taller, stronger, reading by the firelight. I got everything I need, he said. Evelyn smiled. Still, I brought you pie. Chapter 9. A New Name. 2 springs later, on a soft April morning, Clara wore a blue dress and carried a bouquet of prairie flowers. She stood with Evelyn by the courthouse steps as Jude signed the final papers. He turned to her, eyes misting. Don't got to call me Mr. Rawlins no more, he said softly. Clara grinned. I never did. I called you Pa since that day on the trail. They walked home together, past the rebuilt barn, the chicken coop, and the blooming garden. A place once soaked in dust now smelled of rain and promise. Epilogue. Hope on the frontier. Years later, folks would still whisper about the girl left on the trail and the rancher who had nothing, but gave her everything. They'd say the ranch prospered, that Jude and Evelyn eventually married, that Clara became a teacher, helping other children who'd been forgotten by the world.